Hi there. In this video I'm going to attempt to repair an older monitor that is not powering on anymore. I think this is about 10 years old or something like this. Basically you try to power it on, it just blinks the power LED and does nothing, and rarely it actually starts. And it was working, then sometimes it wasn't starting, then more and more it wasn't starting, and now only sometimes it is starting. And when something is gradual like that, my first thinking is capacitors, those pesky capacitors. So we need to open it up, and that is why I'm not showing you how it doesn't want to power on, because I really don't want to charge the capacitors inside this thing right before opening it up. Although I am going to test the capacitors to make sure they are all discharged, especially high voltage ones in the power supply, but preferably I'm not going to try and power it on. I already know it doesn't work. My friend told me he tried to power it on even right before giving it to me to get repaired. Nah, it wasn't having it. So yeah, let's get to it. And capacitors could be to blame even in a monitor, for example, that you manage to power it on, but basically it remains with a black screen. Or you power it on, it powers for a moment and then shuts off by itself. Weird behavior like this. Or it only powers on when it's cold, but if it is warm and it worked for a while and you shut it off and you try to power it again, it will not power on until it gets cold. So weird behaviors like this, most times, yep, it's capacitors. So let's hope we can fix this little guy. Put it down like this, unlatch this thing. If I remember correctly, I actually had the same model of monitor a bunch of years ago. They were quite good monitors. Let me see. Model number, this is it. Oh, June 2000. 15 years old, actually about almost 16 years old. So I was way off. Yep. Capacitors. Open up the 4 screws and slowly get into this thing. Yes, obviously also kind of hard to do with one hand, but why use a tripod when you can do it the hard way? Remove all connectors because you will not be getting them through the case in most monitors. So in most monitors you need to remove all the cables, get them out. And yes, overall, then search for screws. This one only seems to have 4 screws in this back area, and I'm sure it will have lots of clips all around, but first we deal with this one. So these ones. So get back to you once they are Gansky. Before getting into this monitor, just want to mention, do not open it up unless you are comfortable on working with electronics that might still have residual power in capacitors. Those can zap you really bad and in some cases actually end your life. So if you haven't done this before and you are not comfortable, do not do what you see in this video and just take it to a repair shop. But if you are comfortable working with electronics that might still have a charge in them, then yeah, let's open up this thingy all around. In some models, if you are really careful, you can actually spot the areas where the clips are. So we have one here, one right here, and one right there on the bottom side, and on the other sides lots of them. So in theory I unclipped one, now I need to unclip this one. Sometimes it remains unclipped, like now. And now I want to unclip this one. but I think this one just clipped back. Camera focus, what are you doing? So yeah, it's really fun and games. I'm going to try and use all kind of mobile phone opening tools. They also work on monitors for clips, and yeah, go all around until I get it apart. Bottom part is kind of open. Make sure you don't go too deep where you have buttons or where other cables could be, because you can cut them. Now in theory I'll just come on one of the sides and continue to open it up, while trying to not let it clip back where I already opened it up. Making progress. And I want to tell you something, the older the monitor, basically the harder it will be to open up, because these clips are kind of stuck in there. Now it opened up. So yeah, it's all fun and games. Some of them go decently easy, as you can see. Now it's like it wants to be opened up, but until you start a new side, it's literally a pain. And again, yes, probably we will leave some marks. You can try with plastic tools like this, but when they are this old, this most times will not work, sadly. But luckily on such an old monitor, aesthetics are not the main concern anymore. Yeah, and I think we don't have one opened right here in the corner, and it's not allowing us to, yep, it was not allowing us to, I will put this in here just so it cannot close. It was not allowing us to go over the corner with the opening of the clips. It's here. Yep, opened. So now I think it should go much easier, or not. And you might be wondering, why is the top so stubborn? Makes sense, all the heat from this display went up. All its 16 years of life, all the heat accumulated mostly in the top part in here. So these clips are the most brittle ones and the hardest to remove. And I think something is still keeping us in here. Do we still have a clip or something? We'll see. Maybe let it down on its face and remove the back of it. Yep, that's how it works. Depends a lot from model to model. It's not an exact science at all at this point. So we have the flex foil going to the buttons right here in the front. Unclip the flex foil. Lift the latch. Actually, yeah, it's the one that you lift. There are some that you pull, but this one is the lift type. And slowly, because this is also, oh man, this could cause trouble if we break this. This glue right here is also old and dried up, so I'm barely able to lift this without breaking it. You could put some alcohol on the glue and really slowly make your way in here. Yep, old monitors. Hopefully it's all good. Yeah, I think we are good. I can leave it here because this is the part that we want to lift, and at least this monitor has a few screws, I think only on the sides, and then we can lift this whole thing up. So presumably there are 4 screws in total, and if I remember correctly, from back in the day when I actually had this model. Good memories. I think this is a CCFL model. I don't think this is LED. So, presumably, make sure you don't break this. I'm expecting this to even have an inverter for the CCFL tubes, so even more high voltage. Don't go pokey in this thing while it's plugged in, for sure. Even if you are trying to test something, it's not gonna be fun. Let's see, will it allow us to take off the cover? I think it will. Is there something connected to the cover? That most likely is the case. There are some cables, yeah, the CCFL tube cables. Presumably I can push this down and unlock it, yep, to unplug the CCFL cables. Now I'm not sure if there are any rules on what connects where. I think all of them, or the tubes in this, are the same. But I can put some a dot in here, 2 dots in here, 3 in here, and 4 in here, and something like that. So then I know exactly what to plug where. Be back in a second. And now we can get them out. Most times you just push on the lip in this side, or on the other side lift it. It unlatches. And after it's unlatched, if it doesn't want to unlatch, you can use something like this to unlatch it. I was pulling on the cables, which is not that bright. So unlatch it and then pull it. But nothing will come apart easy in this monitor. Make sure you do not break that latch. Because this wasn't open since 16 years ago. So it literally doesn't really want you to open it. We still might have connections for the ports in here. We'll see that in a moment. Oh no, we don't. So everything is actually in here on this side. We have the whole board in there, and we have a connector on the underside, which is gonna be tricky to open. I don't know exactly this type of connector. It has like a card in there, so I'm expecting I will just be able to pull on it and it should come out. Ha! Doesn't really want to come out, does it? Okay-ish. I think it's locked, so I might need to pinch the ends while I'm pulling. This is not fun because I don't want to go pokey in here. Yeah, I felt the ends unlock. And I think now I can actually unplug it. Yeah, I need to pull the connector. Maybe I pulled it a bit too much. Or... I don't want to go pokey without seeing what I'm doing, because I'm next to capacitors in here. One end is unlocked, as you can see it, but the other one is still locked, so it's kind of annoying. Let me try to lock it back in place. And unlock both of them at the same time. This is not doable. Oh, yeah, it was doable. Whew! You can see these were latching in there. So now I have the screen part of it, which is not our problem, because at this point this is not trying to power on at all. So it's not like it's powering on but it has no light, because if it was fully powering on but no light, then I was thinking about GAN CCFL tubes. If it's not trying to power on at all, my first concern are capacitors. And they are on this particular board, so I'm going to take a good long look at what I need to do here. It's kind of hard. I cannot see exactly where the capacitors are, the main input capacitors. So at this point I'm not touching this board at all. My screwdriver has a magnetic tip, trying to not touch the metal part of the screwdriver. Just get this out so I can turn it around and see where the main caps are, and then I can measure them. Because at this point, at least with my experience, I cannot really guess where they are located on this board. Let's see what we get. I think we have one more to go. And now we could short it with this, but I honestly prefer a shorted board than being killed by capacitors, honestly. What am I looking at here? I'm looking at this, which keeps us in place. Let's get this unglued. And now lift this thing up somehow. In theory, on the corner we should not have problems, but anyway, be very careful. And I see the caps, and they are two of them right next to the power supply, which are bloated. So I'm 99% sure those two are Gunskin. And that's the cap that we need to be afraid of, that really big one in there. So its feet are, I think, these two right here, that and that. Let me just on the corner touch this again. Ooh, that wasn't good. Looky, where am I looking? 2 feet, one here and one there. So let me go pokey with the multimeter in voltage mode. Direct current, and to see if we have anything on this. And we don't. So it means that there is a bleeder resistor in here, and it has done its job of discharging this capacitor, which is awesome. Now I'm a little bit more relaxed, but don't be fully relaxed ever when dealing with this. Let's unplug this, which is the main power. Still not touching the middle of the board, because I have no reason to touch the middle of the board. So that's the cap that we just measured, 450 volts, 100 microfarads. That will zap you really bad. And you can see the two bloated caps. Most likely those two are preventing this from starting. Actually both of them are starting to leak a little bit. This one, the main one, almost never leaks. Smaller electrolytics leak, and most times they get bloated when they are bad. So we are going to be searching for 16 volts and 680 microfarad caps, two of them. So 16 and 680. I'm going to go see what I get. Obviously, can this be unplugged? Is this a connector actually? Not sure if this is a connector or not. Might not be a connector. Doesn't really matter to me. Leave this here and go search capacitors. Be back. Did not find the exact value. Normally it's quite okay to go for a higher voltage, something like 25 volts instead of 16. Absolutely no problem. The cap will just be a bit bigger in volume. If you have enough room, zero problems. But as you can see, mine are lower in value, 560 instead of 680. Could still be okay, but I'm going to try actually with this 1000 micro at 16 volts and another 1000 micro at 16 volts. These are old caps. They are in theory in spec, but still could be a bit lower in value. So I think they will work in here, depending on what they are doing. If they are just basically reservoirs of energy for the rest of the circuit, then they will not matter that much if they are a bit bigger, but if they have any other mission critical purpose in here, they might not like to be bigger. So not ideal. You will normally want the same microfarad value, but I don't think we have a problem here, and I prefer to go a bit higher than a bit lower. So let's try with this, see if it works, and if it works, we are good. Checked that one, it has 1000 and a tiny bit, and this one has 0.98, which means 988 for example now, so they are good. These two are really close to what they need to be, so they are going in place of those. I'm curious what those two will have when I measure them. Let's desolder old caps, this and this right here. Old style soldering iron, good enough for this job. If I could actually see my solder. You want to put new solder on them. This is not a capacitor replacement tutorial. I think I have better videos for that. This is just showing how easily a monitor can be basically saved. I think I put a little bit too much solder. This soldering iron is not that great anymore. By just replacing two tiny components. Cannot get my hand in there properly. I will do the same with the other one, but now let me just check this one. 680 by 16 volts. Let's get the quick tech real quick in here. Capacity. Where are you? Capacity. And negative. And positive. Let's see what we get. Oh, come on, don't short them. Annoying. 439, 32. So at least 200 microfarads lower, and I think this is the better one. The other one I think it's leaked even more. So yeah, that's enough to not make a monitor work anymore. Probably the lower the value got, the harder this monitor started. So now let's unsolder the other one and start putting back the good ones. Make sure you remember the correct orientation, but it's also marked on the board. So white on this one means minus, which is this. So you put a minus to the minus, and we should be over in a minute. First capacitor, the new one is in. As you can see, it's not taller than what's next to it, so it will not interfere with anything during the assembly process. You must make sure it's not taller, must make sure the legs are not longer than components next to it. Not an extremely nice solder job, but it does the trick. And now let's put the second one. I most times don't even bother cleaning the solder from the holes, because I just make sure I spread the legs of the new capacitor exactly enough for them to align with the holes. Like this. Hold it with my hand and one by one start melting the solder on the other side. It's gonna be quite tricky to do now, and also try to film at the same time, because again my workspace, it's not yet finished. So a little leg, it's already in. As you can see, it's already in here. So now I can melt the other leg and push that one a little bit, and one by one I will wiggle it until it's in final position. Make sure it starts touching the PCU so it stays in place, and it's as low as I can, because they are a bit longer than the original ones, so I want them as close to the PCB as possible to not interfere, and we are done. Close this back up and hope it starts. This capacitor is also not taller. I have the proper polarity on both of them. Now again, just make sure I do everything in reverse. If I could remember where voltage in goes, I think it's on this side. I cleaned the PCB so there's no more dust on it if I'm here already. And just make sure you put everything back together in exactly the same way you initially found it. And everything should be okay. But again, this is dangerous. That big cap on the mains could potentially kill you, so be very careful. Now let me put all the screws in, start plugging stuff in and close this thingy. Connected the main video cable, that was first before I put this in. Now I'm connecting these little guys exactly as I marked on them. 4 dots, 3 dots. Come on, camera, help me do this faster. And 1 dot. So these are connected. In LED monitors you will not have these 4 thingies in here. You might only have one type of connector. Put the cover, the EMC shield in here. Get back in here and connect this little guy. Push it in there and close the latch on top of it. Hope for the best that we didn't break it when we were pulling slowly on it. I did my best to pull slowly. Okay, I think I put it in here a bit crooked, but should still be fine. That's about it. The screws already in on the side. That depends a lot on your model, so some have them, some don't. I think next step, this thingy goes in here. Start clipping it all around. Normally you can only partially clip it if you want to do a test, but yeah, maybe I'm a bit overconfident, but I think it will work. I'm going to put the screws back, so be back to you in a moment and then give it a test. Next step, latch the leg in place, plug in the cables and give it a test. Again, try to replace with same value of capacitors in microfarad. If you get the same voltage is ideal, but the voltage can be higher. It just means that that is the voltage that the capacitor can withstand without having internal issues. As value in microfarads, you can go a bit higher depending on where the cap is. Ideally you don't go higher, but yeah. So let me plug in the power, where is it, and get back to you. Actually, here it is, okay. And come on, I am in a bit of a hurry this time, so let's see if this works. Let's see what we get. Didn't even need to push the button. Let me see, can I shut it off? Yes, I can shut it off. Can I power it on? It's really tricky where you... Yeah, it's tricky where you press the button. You kind of need to make sure you push it properly. Yeah, because it's also not powering it off all the time. So, yep, it's fixed, but the button itself is not that great. Maybe someday in the future it will be revisited if necessary. Presumably it will be changed with one of the switches right next to it. But for the moment, from what I can see, yep, issue is fixed. Just the button is a bit finicky. But that's for another day. So, hope this video helps you, in which case please give it a like, check out my other videos, and as always, see you in the next one. Bye.